Morgan Freeman is known around the world as the man with a voice that sounds like truth itself. When he speaks, people listen. His calm tone, steady presence, and quiet authority have guided audiences through films, documentaries, and stories for decades. Many people see him as a symbol of wisdom, strength, and dignity. But behind that legendary voice is a life filled with hardship, rejection, pain, and loss that Hollywood rarely talks about. His journey to success was not fast or easy. In fact, it took nearly 50 years of struggle before the world truly recognized his talent. Before the fame, before the awards, and before becoming one of the most respected actors alive. Morgan Freeman was just a poor boy growing up in the segregated American South, where opportunity was scarce and hope was fragile. He was born on June 1st, 1937, in Memphis, Tennessee, but his early life unfolded mostly in Mississippi, a place deeply shaped by racial segregation at the time. Black families faced constant discrimination, poverty, and limited opportunities. Morgan's parents worked hard just to survive. His father was a barber who struggled to find steady income, and his mother worked as a teacher and cleaner, taking whatever job she could to support the family. Even with both parents working, money was never enough. When Morgan was still very young, his parents made a painful decision that many families were forced to make during those difficult years. They sent him to live with his grandmother in a small town called Charleston, Mississippi, hoping he would have a more stable life there. Life with his grandmother was simple and extremely poor. The house had no electricity, no running water, and no comforts that most people take for granted. Poverty was everywhere, but it was normal to the people living there. Morgan later said that as a child, he did not even realize how poor they were because everyone around him lived the same way. His days were filled with hard work, including picking cotton under the hot sun for very little pay. He wore clothes made from whatever materials were available, sometimes even stitched together from old fabric sacks. School was also a struggle. While white children rode buses to well-funded schools, black children walked long distances to overcrowded classrooms with limited resources. The message society sent was clear. Their lives were considered less valuable. Growing up in that environment meant learning to survive quietly. Racism was not just an idea. It was part of daily life. He saw how black people were treated differently in stores, on the streets, and by authorities. Fear and caution were constant companions. Children learned early not to draw attention to themselves, because even small mistakes could lead to serious consequences. Morgan later said he learned how to become invisible, how to keep his head down and avoid trouble. But inside him, something was slowly building, a desire to be seen, to be heard, to matter. That moment came when he was 9 years old and took part in a school play. It was a small production with a simple stage and a modest audience of parents and teachers. But for him, it was life-changing. Standing in front of people, speaking lines, and becoming someone else gave him a feeling he had never experienced before. For the first time, he was not invisible. People were watching him, listening to him, and applauding him. That experience planted a dream in his heart. He realized that acting had the power to transform not just stories, but also the way people saw him. From that day forward, he wanted to become an actor, even though the path seemed impossible for someone with his background. His family moved often in search of work, which meant he attended several schools and never stayed in one place long enough to feel settled. Eventually, he attended high school in Greenwood, Mississippi, where he joined the drama club and continued to develop his passion for acting. One teacher recognized his talent and encouraged him, telling him he had a gift that should not be wasted. Those words stayed with him because encouragement was rare in a world that constantly told him to lower his expectations. After graduating from high school in 1955, reality set in. Hollywood was far away, both physically and socially. Opportunities for black actors were extremely limited, and most roles available were based on stereotypes. Acting did not seem like a realistic way to support himself or help his family. So he joined the United States Air Force, hoping it would provide stability and direction. He trained as a radar technician and served for several years, but military life did not bring him happiness. Instead, it made him realize that he could not ignore his dream forever. Acting was the only thing that had ever made him feel truly alive. At the age of 22, he made a bold decision that would shape the rest of his life. He left the Air Force and moved to Los Angeles with almost no money and no connections, chasing a dream that many people believed was unrealistic. The city that symbolized opportunity quickly showed him how difficult success would be. Auditions led nowhere, and the few roles offered to him were small, stereotypical parts that did not reflect his true ability. The struggle was exhausting, but he refused to give up. Eventually, he moved to New York City, hoping theater would offer better opportunities. New York was not easier. He faced fierce competition, constant rejection, and financial pressure. To survive, he worked many jobs, including dancing in shows, driving a taxi, and doing office work. Years passed with little progress. He got married and became a father, which made the uncertainty even harder because he had responsibilities beyond his own dreams. Still, he kept pursuing acting, believing that persistence would eventually open a door. He spent decades working in theater and television, slowly building his skills while the world barely noticed. By the time he reached his 40s, many people would have given up, but Morgan Freeman continued. His breakthrough would not come until he was 50 years old, an age when most actors are already established or fading from the spotlight. His story is not just about talent. It is about endurance, patience, and refusing to quit even when success seems impossible. By the early 1980s, Morgan Freeman had reached a point where many people would have accepted defeat. He was in his mid-40s, an age when most actors had either found success or moved on to something more stable. For him, success still felt distant. He had spent more than 2 decades chasing roles, working small jobs, and struggling to support his family. The dream he discovered as a child on that small school stage now felt like something that might never fully come true. Yet, even with disappointment weighing heavily on him, he refused to walk away. Acting was not just a career choice anymore. It was part of his identity. During those years, theater became his refuge. While film and television continued to overlook him, the stage offered a place where talent mattered more than appearance or fame. He began performing in serious productions, including classical plays that demanded emotional depth and strong presence. Critics started to notice that there was something unique about him. He had a calm intensity that drew attention even when he was silent. Unlike younger actors who relied on energy and charm, Morgan's strength came from stillness and control. He did not need to shout to command a scene. This quiet power would later become one of his defining qualities on screen. One of his most important roles during this period came in the stage production of Driving Miss Daisy, where he played Ho Colburn, a patient chauffeur navigating the complicated relationship between himself and an elderly white woman in the segregated South. The character required subtlety, humor, and emotional restraint, qualities Morgan had developed through years of hardship. His performance received strong praise from theater critics, many of whom described it as deeply moving and authentic. For the first time in a long while, it felt like the world was beginning to notice what he could do. Then came a turning point that changed everything. In 1987, at the age of 50, Morgan Freeman was cast in the film Street Smart. He played a dangerous and unpredictable character known as Fast Black, a role very different from anything he had done before. The performance was intense, frightening, and unforgettable. Audiences who saw the film could not ignore him, even though he was not the main star. When award season arrived, his name appeared among the nominees for the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. After decades of invisibility, he had finally reached the highest level of recognition in the film industry. Although he did not win the Oscar that year, the nomination changed his career overnight. Directors and producers who had once ignored him now saw him as a serious actor capable of elevating any project. Offers began to arrive, and he was suddenly in demand. What made his success unusual was his age. Most actors achieve fame in their 20s or 30s, but Morgan Freeman was just getting started at 50. His journey proved that talent does not expire, and that perseverance can eventually overcome even the longest odds. The late 1980s and early 1990s became a period of rapid growth for him. The film adaptation of Driving Miss Daisy brought him back to the role that had earned him praise on stage, this time reaching a global audience. His performance was warm, dignified, and deeply human, showing the emotional complexity of a man navigating friendship and racial tension. The film was widely celebrated and earned him another Academy Award nomination, this time for Best Actor. Around the same time, he appeared in the historical film Glory, portraying a disciplined soldier during the American Civil War. Once again, his presence added weight and authenticity to the story. With each new role, he built a reputation as an actor who could bring depth to any character. He was not defined by flashy performances or dramatic transformations. Instead, he made characters feel real and grounded, as if they had lived long lives before the audience ever saw them. His voice also became a powerful tool. Calm, steady, and reassuring, it carried a sense of authority that few actors could match. Filmmakers began to recognize that his narration alone could elevate a project, turning ordinary dialogue into something memorable. Despite the growing recognition, success came with complicated emotions. Morgan had spent so many years struggling that part of him found it difficult to enjoy the rewards fully. He often reflected on the time he had lost, the decades when he was working tirelessly while others rose to fame much faster. He had missed opportunities to provide stability for his family and had endured financial stress that left lasting scars. Fame could not erase those memories. It only reminded him how long the journey had been. His personal life also reflected the strain of those years. His first marriage ended after years of pressure and uncertainty. Relationships had been tested by his relentless focus on acting and the financial instability that came with it. By the time he became widely recognized, he was starting a new chapter of life that included both professional triumph and personal reflection. Success did not feel like a finish line, it felt like a late beginning. As the 1990s approached, Morgan Freeman was no longer invisible. He had become one of the most respected actors in Hollywood, known for bringing wisdom and gravity to every role. Yet he remained humble, aware of how fragile success could be. He had spent too many years on the outside looking in to take anything for granted. The boy who once picked cotton in Mississippi had finally reached a place where his voice could be heard around the world. What no one knew at the time was that even greater triumphs and devastating tragedies still lay ahead. The roles that would define his legacy were coming, but so were challenges that fame and fortune could not protect him from. The 1990s became the decade that truly defined Morgan Freeman's legacy. After spending more than 30 years struggling for recognition, he suddenly found himself at the center of some of the most powerful films of the era. What made his rise remarkable was not just the number of roles he played, but the impact of each performance. He was no longer simply an actor appearing in movies. He had become a presence, someone whose voice and calm authority could shape the emotional core of a story. In 1994, he starred in a prison drama that initially seemed modest in scope. The film told the story of friendship, hope, and survival inside the walls of a harsh prison. Morgan played Ellis Redding, a man who had spent most of his life behind bars and learned how to survive by adapting to the system. The character required quiet strength rather than dramatic outbursts, and Morgan delivered a performance filled with warmth, sorrow, and wisdom. Although the movie did not achieve major success at the box office when it was first released, it slowly found an audience through television broadcasts and home video. Over time, it grew into one of the most beloved films ever made. His narration in the story became iconic, proving that sometimes the softest voice carries the greatest power. Soon after, he appeared in a dark crime thriller where he portrayed a veteran detective nearing retirement. The role showed a different side of him, weary, thoughtful, and deeply aware of the darkness in the world. His performance balanced the intensity of the film, grounding it in humanity. Audiences saw that he could move effortlessly between hope and despair, between calm reflection and emotional weight. Directors realized that casting Morgan Freeman meant giving a film credibility and depth. By the late 1990s, he was working with some of the most respected filmmakers in the industry. Historical dramas, thrillers, and character-driven stories all sought his involvement. He often portrayed mentors, leaders, or figures of moral strength, roles that reflected how audiences saw him. His reputation as the voice of wisdom began to take shape during this time. Documentary filmmakers also discovered that his narration could transform educational content into something compelling and emotional. Despite the success, Morgan remained grounded. He knew how fragile opportunity could be because he had spent decades without it. While younger actors chased fame and attention, he focused on choosing meaningful roles that challenged him. He was not interested in being a celebrity. He wanted to be respected as a craftsman. This approach allowed him to maintain a steady career without becoming trapped by trends or typecasting. In 2004, after years of acclaimed performances, he appeared in a powerful drama about a struggling female boxer and her trainer. Morgan played a former fighter who now worked quietly in a gym, observing the lives of others while carrying regrets of his own. The role demanded emotional restraint and deep empathy. Once again, he served as the film's narrator, guiding the audience through a story that was both inspiring and heartbreaking. When award season arrived, his performance earned him the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. At the age of 67, he finally held the Oscar that had eluded him for so long. The moment represented more than personal victory. It symbolized perseverance, patience, and the belief that success can arrive even when it seems too late. Many actors peak early and fade away, but Morgan's greatest achievements came when most people are preparing for retirement. His journey inspired countless artists who feared that time had passed them by. Following his Oscar win, his career reached new heights. He appeared in major blockbuster films, historical epics, and family-friendly comedies. One of his most memorable roles was portraying a technological genius who guided a young superhero, bringing seriousness and intelligence to a genre often dominated by spectacle. In another film, he portrayed a world leader with such authenticity that audiences felt they were watching history come alive. He even took on the role of God in a lighthearted comedy, a casting choice that reflected how deeply audiences trusted his voice and presence. Financial success followed. After decades of financial uncertainty, he accumulated significant wealth and invested wisely. He purchased a large property in Mississippi, returning to the state where his life had begun under harsh conditions. This time, however, he returned not as a poor child, but as one of the most respected figures in entertainment. The land symbolized both victory and closure, proof that he had overcome the limitations placed on him by history and circumstance. Yet, success did not erase the hardships of the past. Morgan often spoke about the importance of persistence and discipline. He knew that fame could disappear as quickly as it arrived, and he approached each project with the same dedication he had shown during his struggling years. To him, acting was not about awards or recognition. It was about storytelling and connecting with audiences. As the 2000s progressed, he became one of the most recognizable voices in the world. His narration was sought for documentaries exploring nature, science, and human history. Hearing him speak gave viewers a sense of calm and understanding, as if they were being guided by someone who had seen everything and learned from it. This ability to comfort and inspire through words alone became a defining feature of his legacy. However, life was preparing challenges that no amount of success could prevent. Just as he reached the peak of his influence, a sudden and devastating event would change his physical life forever. The strength he had built over decades would be tested in ways he never expected. The world saw Morgan Freeman as invincible, a symbol of endurance and wisdom. But even the strongest lives can be altered in a single moment. The next chapter of his story would reveal that fame and fortune cannot protect anyone from fate. In the later years of his life, Morgan Freeman faced a reality that no amount of fame, talent, or wealth could shield him from: the slow, unavoidable process of aging combined with the consequences of past tragedies. The devastating car accident he survived did not simply leave physical scars. It permanently altered how he experienced everyday life. Chronic nerve damage led to constant pain in his arm and shoulder, forcing him to wear a compression glove that became a permanent part of his appearance. What many people saw as a simple accessory was actually a medical necessity, a reminder that even legends live with suffering that the public rarely understands. The condition that followed, fibromyalgia, made life even more difficult. Unlike injuries that heal over time, this illness brought unpredictable waves of pain that could strike without warning. Some mornings he woke feeling strong enough to work, while other days, even basic movements felt exhausting. For a man who had spent decades mastering physical control on stage and screen, losing command over his own body was deeply frustrating. Acting became more challenging, requiring adjustments in how scenes were filmed and how characters were written. Yet he refused to retire completely. Continuing to work was not just about career, it was about identity. Acting had saved him from invisibility once before, and he would not let pain erase that purpose. At the same time, personal tragedies left emotional wounds that never fully healed. The loss of his step-granddaughter, who had been like a child to him, shattered the private world he had carefully protected. Her death was sudden, violent, and impossible to comprehend. Those close to him said it changed his outlook on life, making him quieter and more reflective. Public appearances became less frequent, and interviews revealed a man who had seen both the highest peaks of success and the deepest valleys of grief. Fame, he realized, could not protect the people he loved. Controversies later in his life also complicated his public image. Accusations and criticism forced the world to reconsider the flawless reputation he had carried for decades. Whether fair or not, the situation reminded everyone that public figures are human, capable of mistakes and misunderstandings. For Morgan, it meant confronting the uncomfortable truth that legacy is fragile. A lifetime of respect can be questioned overnight. Instead of responding with anger, he chose mostly silence, allowing his work to speak for itself. It was the same quiet resilience that had carried him through years of rejection in his youth. Today, in his late 80s, Morgan Freeman lives a slower, more private life on his Mississippi ranch. The property represents a full circle, a return to the place where his journey began, but under entirely different circumstances. As a child, Mississippi symbolized poverty and limitation. As an elder statesman of Hollywood, it became a sanctuary of peace. He spends time caring for nature, particularly maintaining a bee sanctuary he established on the land. The quiet routine of tending to living things offers a kind of therapy that fame never could. Bees respond to patience and calm, not celebrity status, and that simplicity brings him comfort. Financial security ensures that he can choose projects carefully. He now accepts roles mainly for enjoyment or artistic value rather than necessity. Voice acting and narration remain especially suited to him, allowing him to work without physical strain. His voice, steady, warm, unmistakable, continues to captivate audiences around the world. It is the one instrument time has not taken from him. Even as his movements slow, that voice still carries authority, compassion, and depth. Public perception of Morgan Freeman has evolved over the years. He is no longer just the voice of God or the wise mentor figure audiences once saw. Instead, he is viewed as a complex human being who endured hardship, achieved extraordinary success, faced devastating loss, and continued forward despite it all. His life story resonates because it reflects something universal, the understanding that greatness does not eliminate pain. If anything, it often comes with a heavier burden. His career stands as proof that success does not follow a fixed timeline. He did not become widely famous until middle age. He did not win his first Oscar until his late 60s. He built wealth and recognition long after many people assume opportunities have passed. For those who feel discouraged by slow progress, his journey offers reassurance that persistence can outlast circumstance. Talent alone did not define him. Endurance did. More importantly, Morgan Freeman's story challenges the idea of perfection. He was never a flawless hero. He was a man shaped by segregation, poverty, rejection, and resilience. Every role he played carried the weight of those experiences, which is why audiences trusted him. They sensed authenticity behind the calm exterior. When he spoke about hope, survival, or redemption, it felt real because he had lived those struggles himself. As he enters the final chapter of his life, the world continues to revisit his work. The films, the narrations, the unforgettable performances that shaped modern cinema. New generations discover his voice through classic movies and documentaries, often without realizing how long and difficult the path to that voice truly was. In a way, that may be the greatest measure of his legacy. His work has outgrown his personal story, becoming part of cultural history. Morgan Freeman once said that the best way to guarantee failure is to quit. He never did. From a poor child in the segregated South to one of the most respected actors in the world, his life illustrates the power of perseverance. He showed that recognition delayed is not recognition denied, that pain does not erase purpose, and that even when the spotlight fades, the impact of a lifetime of dedication remains. Legends are often remembered for their triumphs, but Morgan Freeman will also be remembered for his endurance, for continuing to move forward when life gave him every reason to stop. And perhaps it is why his voice still resonates so deeply. It carries not just authority, but experience, not just wisdom, but survival. Even as time inevitably quiets that voice, the stories he helped tell will continue to speak for him, reminding the world that true greatness is not measured by how high someone rises, but by how much they overcome along the way.